Hello. And that was a very melancholy hello because I am super hot today. It's like 145 degrees here in sunny Southern California. And you are now with the Black Powder Podcast, the only real libertarian podcast in America, in North America, South America. I'm going to give you guys a geography lesson just real quick. The world. That's where we are the only real libertarian podcast. And tonight, you're seeing a couple new faces here. One's not so new, but you're seeing a new face here. We want to congratulate our brother in liberty, Eric Parker, on the birth of his baby girl last week. Another libertarian voter in 17 years and 11 months or so, and 11 and a half months. We got another libertarian voter. So once again, congratulations, Eric Parker. We miss you. But I want to thank these two people for coming on today and providing the support that the message of liberty can march on, even during these times where people are populating the earth. And our other friend Tub has to watch his grandson. So he's making sure the next generation of libertarians is well looked after. First, being the gentleman that I am, I have to introduce my co-Southern Californian guest, Abbins O'Brien. How you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Marcus.
And for some reason, we simply can't escape the state of Florida. I do not know why. We always have to have a Florida man on this podcast. Overrepresented are they? And without further ado, my homeboy Joe Hanush, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm very, very happy to be the Florida man and representing the only non-West Coast person on the podcast. So I'm very happy about that, and got to represent Florida.
Word. And to keep on that West Coast theme here, and there's one thing, I was at the California Libertarian Conference a couple weeks ago. I had a chance to slap hands with Abbins there on Sunday.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. And it was, like I said, I have yet to meet a libertarian that is the intended product of the public education system. And California has some very eclectic libertarians. And like I said last week, the TISM is really strong and it is profound. But we do have a spectrum, no pun intended, of libertarians within the fold. And tonight we have a guy from the Northwest that's running for city council, because the point to what I was trying to say is we need to start locally, showing people that we can govern. And by govern, I mean leave you the hell alone, essentially, within your life, as much as government can do, as much as government should do. And without further ado, I want to introduce our guest tonight, Mr. Cobi Clark from Auburn, Washington. How you doing?
Doing awesome. How are you all?
Cool. Now, you're running for city council there, and I'm going to let Joe get to it. But before he does, is just real quick, tell us who you are.
Sure.
Yeah,
my name's Cobi Clark. I'm running for Auburn City Council position 6. I'm endorsed by the Libertarian Party, and I'm formerly active in my statewide party, the Libertarian Party of Washington State. I was the legislative director for a year, where I helped them develop various policies and lobby those policies at the state legislature. I used to build houses for a living. I developed about 300 homes for Washington State before selling my construction business and pursuing a degree in economics so that I could get into public service. So now I'm here. I've got a set of policies I'd like to see my city implement, and I'm bringing those forward. Hopefully the voters like them. I did just clear the primary, so that's very exciting. And hopefully things go as well or better in the general.
Awesome. Joe, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, and that's good. That's some information I didn't know before. But so you have a resume of like being part of the community and building, and to kind of lean into what we were talking about there. Your city has 85,000 people in there. I just looked it up on Google. That's more than twice the size of my own city, and I know how difficult it is to run for local office there. So just making it through the primary that it was just happened on Tuesday night, that's kind of a big deal. So tell us about how you made it through the primary and what you're looking to do, for the general election.
Yeah, and I actually had a fairly tough primary. I was against a gentleman named James J. Raj, and also a young woman named Lisa Sturgis. And Lisa's the incumbent, but James J. Raj had been on the city council for 3 terms previously, and he had taken the term off, and he was coming back to try and get another seat. And so defeating him in the primary, having been a known person in the city for more than a decade, it feels pretty good. Lisa also garnered less than 50% of the vote, and both James and I ran on affordable housing. And James was endorsed by progressives. His notion of affordable housing, I think, caters more toward public housing and state subsidies. And we all know that that's not my platform. My platform is that exclusionary zoning, and in particular the Growth Management Act at the state level, in addition to exclusionary and what I call prescriptive zoning at the city level, has made it impossible to build the supply of houses that we need to keep housing affordable. And so I'd like to see our city adopt what I call restrictive zoning rather than prescriptive zoning. Prescriptive zoning is a single family zone. You can build a single family residence, or, apartment zone, you can build apartment. I want something that says, this is what you can't build, because if you build this, it will harm other people in the community. You got a polluting industry. Let's say it's coal-fired power plant, right? You can't build that in a residential neighborhood, so we can restrict that. That's reasonable. So we lay out all the restrictions, but outside of the pragmatic restrictions that need to be placed on a piece of land to prevent harms to other people in the community, you should be able to build as many houses as you can fit on that lot. And in particular, the areas in my city that I'm talking about there's an area around an existing mall that is somewhat distressed. It has a lot of empty parking. And I would actually say it's not distressed anymore. They've done a good job of revamping it. The businesses are doing okay, but they're not doing as well as they used to. And there are certainly distressed commercial centers throughout downtown that we've been trying to rezone for almost a decade now. And we have a very unique program in Washington State called the Growth Management Act. In order to rezone anything, you have to go through a 10-year comprehensive review. You get one exception within that 10-year period that as a city you can rezone things. And that makes it impossible to be responsive to market needs. You can't wait 10 years for housing. And so one of the things that I had the privilege of working on with Senator Wilson, you talked to me about before the show, was a Senate Bill 5749, which would allow local cities to rezone those high density commercial areas that are already served by public infrastructure and have already been developed and pose low environmental risk for further development. We could rezone those without having to go through the comprehensive plan. And that ability to let the market deliver a higher supply of housing is really going to, make housing more affordable for people coming to the city because of the increased supply, but it'll also increase the tax base, giving us a better economies of scale, reducing the tax burden for residents that already live in the city. And so that's really kind of one of the prime focuses of my campaign is market-oriented affordable housing. And in the primary, it seems that I split the vote with Jay Raj, whose focus was also affordable housing. The voters have decided they like my vision better, and I hope that the folks who voted for Jay Raj come around to my ideas and also vote for me in the general.
Nobbins? You have anything?
All right. So my question. So when you were describing yourself and your past experience, that you used to build houses and then you went into public service, this idea. So my question is going to start by sounding mean, and I swear it's not.
That's okay. I got a thick skin.
So I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm all about the idea that we should do productive things, and we should have as little politics in our lives as possible, really, in general. That's the goal, right? So you went from doing something extremely useful and necessary, which is building houses, and then you're going into public policy. That's why it sounds mean, as I'm saying.
No, I love it. No, it's fabulous. It's incredible. I went from a productive member of society to somebody who's leeching off the taxpayers. I understand what you're saying.
So, and I don't, but the reason I'm asking, what I want to ask is, there's always something that triggers the fact that you had to move from being a productive member of society, which you still are, to being somebody that's trying to set policy to change it. It usually means that what happened is you hit problems in your productive thing that caused you were the government is making this totally unproductive. So I would love to hear about your journey in which you said, I have to do this thing in order to become more productive, to help facilitate more productive people to be more productive. So.
Yeah, no, I love it. That's fabulous. I very much appreciate that. You're absolutely right. I also want to clarify, I didn't just build like single family homes. I built multifamily apartment buildings, mid-rises. I also built senior living. I did a memory care center and a skilled nursing facility. So I've done a variety of different
Awesome.
construction types. And in the process of doing, that kind of breadth of varied construction, you come to find that a lot of the building inspectors, a lot of the city council members, a lot of the government agencies don't communicate with each other, right? Like the memory care skilled nursing facility that I built, I had to adhere to International Building Code, local building code, DSHS, Department of Health and Services, DOH, Department of Health. And all of these different agencies have very well-meaning, well-intentioned, safety-oriented codes, but they don't talk to each other. So like there are some instances where my project was held up for months, right? Like there are people on hospice and memory care who don't have very much life left and who really need a place to live. And my project's been held up for months because DSHS and DOH can't agree how many inches away from the door the hand railing needs to be, right? It's like, what are we doing here? and that's just one issue of many. But another major challenge we have, I'm fortunate in that I wasn't just a project manager in construction. I also had a background in real estate development as an owner's representative before I got into construction directly. So I can do various financial underwriting. I can acquire my own land. I'm a designated broker. And I can take a whole project. You give me a piece of land, I can take it from raw dirt through the financing process. I can find the private equity, I can get the bank, and then I can deliver it to market, right? So start to finish, I can do the whole thing. And throughout that process, talking about energy code in particular in Washington State, every 3 years or so, 2012, 2015, 2018, 2021, we get a new energy code. And the energy code is developed by the Building Codes Council, who is a group of ecocentrists who are hell-bent, religiously hell-bent on protecting the environment, even at the expense of people. And then it also has a separate group of what's considered industry insiders who manufacture the sorts of equipment that has to go into these buildings. So I'll give you one example. I can't put squirrel cages or cadet heaters. I can't put a cadet heater in a house anymore. You guys have all seen them, I'm sure. You turn the heat on and a little wall heater on the wall spits out the heat, heats up the room, and then it turns off. Very simple. That cadet heater costs about $200 to put in the wall. It's no longer legal because it consumes too much electricity. So now I have to put in a mini split, and I have to put in a heat pump water heater. I'm not sure if you guys know what a heat pump water heater costs, but it costs about $3,000. Mini split system costs about $15,000. And whereas a traditional water heater costs $600-700 and a wall heater costs $200, we're talking about adding $20,000 to the cost of a house. And gosh, how many people produce heat pump water heaters? That sounds like a kind of a unique technology. It turns out it is. There's patents for it, and who has the patents but the people on the Building Codes Council. So it's like the ecocentrists and the industry insiders have gotten together and decided what the market's allowed to build as far as energy goes. And the sad part of it is that Washington State has a beautiful, one of the greenest energy producing infrastructures in the country. We have hydroelectric, we have primarily hydroelectric, wind, solar. Something like 20% of our power grid is so-called dirty, and half of that, 10%, is natural gas. So, why are we spending all of this time and energy forcing people who buy houses to pay for technology that causes them to consume less energy when the energy we're producing doesn't even produce that much carbon? And it's just, the association of, or the Builders Association did a study, and they came up with the cost of a $500,000 house, about 15% of that house is driven by energy code. I mean, that's monumental. That's the difference between somebody earning a median income, buying a house, and not buying a house. And so it's that combination of things that makes it impossible to build. We have all these luxury houses because we're forced to build Cadillacs, and we should really be allowed to build, a Chevy, so that everyone has a place to live. So, this culmination of different codes and requirements that just makes it impossible to build stuff is one of the major motivating factors for why I decided I needed to get into politics and get this sorted out, because there's a whole lot of people who are well-intended that don't understand the unintended consequences they're causing in the marketplace downstream.
Yeah, you just described government to the T. I mean, that's just government. Government has to justify its existence. And the only way it could do that is through regulation, laws. And you know, people say, well, what's the matter with laws? Laws don't make shit right. I'm sorry. You know, history has proven laws are not necessarily the moral compass to a just society. And that's refreshing for you to speak to, because you're the type of youthful presence that we need progressing into the future in the local politics that will bring other people into the fold, is to realize that libertarians aren't stupid. This is costing you money. This is a impediment to your life going forward, because the government needs to justify its existence. Joe, you have something?
Yeah, I'll go on that. That's a great idea, great proposal, great reason for being involved. And kind of maybe a tough question here is, given the makeup of the current board, or who you were expecting to be on the council when you get elected, what's the process? Do you think there's a high chance of getting some of these things passed to become policy? Or is it something...
That's a great question. So, you know, do I think we're going to be able to change the makeup of the Building Codes Council so that they start passing policy that caters more to homeowners? As a city council member, absolutely not. Right? I don't have that authority. That's the authority of the state legislature. But what I do think is that Senate Bill 5749, for example, got a lot of traction last session. That passed the Senate, and it died in committee in the House. And I think it's going to go to a new committee this next session. In the House. So I think it'll pass the Senate again, and I think it's got a good chance of passing the House. And if it does, that would then empower me to upzone those higher density areas in the city. And I think as a city council member, I can work with my city and ask for various resolutions and put pressure on the legislature and my district representatives to pass that law for the benefit of our people.
And that's the Housing Development Opportunity Zone bill?
That's right. You got it. The Housing Development Opportunity Zone bill, and proposed by Senator Jeff Wilson. And you'll see that passed the Senate last session. I think it's going to come back to the floor next session. I think it'll pass the Senate again. And I think it'll go to a different committee in the House. That's my prognostication. Now, you know, my whole campaign's not built on that. I'm also focused deeply on civil rights, which I think the city actually has a lot of authority on. You know, there's a lot of constitutional authority that the cities have in defending those individual rights that we all have. And then the third part is economic development and streamlining, which is less interesting for you guys. But so my housing focus is in transforming our prescriptive zoning to restrictive zoning in certain zones, and then. Well, I got a lot of ideas about civil rights, but I don't want to. I'm a little limited on time. I've got a homeowners association meeting I have to get to at 7 o'clock. I don't want to talk over all your questions, so I'll let you hit me with the next one.
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, I was actually reading. I was on your website. It's Cobi Clark, COBICLARK.com, by the way, for folks interested. And there you have this thing where you could take a survey on your website, which I love. I've never seen this before. And so we could give you feedback on things. So I thought that was great.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't seen it before either. And I think it's wild that, you know, politicians go out there and they come up with all these wacky ideas in a bubble, and then they expect everyone to go along with it. And that just doesn't seem right to me. So what I did with that survey is not only is it on my website, but the postcard that I sent out in the primary to all of the primary voters included a QR code to that survey. I've actually gotten a lot of feedback on that now. And some of the results are a little surprising, but I'll be following up on that for the general.
Yeah. So do you want to say what people have given back to you, like one or two things, if you want to?
Sure. I mean, there's a good number of policies on there. I think there's 20. I don't think we have time for all of them. Is there any that stand out to you that you want to talk about?
Let me see here. Yeah, civil rights, economic development, housing infrastructure. Yeah, there's 20 of them here. I mean, we could go on to another question while I'm looking at something.
Sure, you come up with a good one. Does someone else have another question?
Fair. Well, I wanted to first say, I forgive you for going from being to work in building buildings to going into public policy. I was just like, I was gonna say that immediately after your question. Like you answered my question, and then Marcus kicked in. I was like, I was gonna say it's okay, I forgive you. Like, so I just wanted to get that out there. But you were saying you said something about civil rights. So you know what? Like, I want to give you this opportunity now to talk about what that means to you, or what brought you, what really brought that up for you.
Sure. So Marcus, you said something earlier that about laws not being the solution, and I think when I was studying to get my degree, economics, policy analysis, political science, and philosophy, it's a double major. The political science books kind of fascinated me. They suggest that the definition of politics is collectively deciding who gets what, when, where, and how. And that just felt awful, right? I'm like, that's not the right definition of politics. Definition of politics is the act of collectively bargaining on what solutions we're going to use violence to solve, right? Because the state is violence, a law is backed by force. And so politics, it does not inherently it's not inherently about figuring out who gets what, where, when, and how. These textbooks are presupposing that it's okay to use violence to figure out who gets what, where, when, and how. And I hate that. I mean, that goes to the university system. I think imposing an idea of what the state is in a way that's inappropriate. I brought this up with my professor, and he gave me a number of incredible articles. He liked what I had to say about it. And he acknowledged what I was saying. He was a great guy. And so it's certainly not the professors, but it's just struggling. It's a struggle to get people who become so complacent with the idea that we can use violence to solve these problems to recognize what it is that they're doing. And so I think coming back to civil rights, it's critically important that when we're making policy decisions, we recognize that we're waving a gun around. And so we need to be cognizant of the way that we're doing that. So
yeah, all laws are enforced at the end of a firearm or a weapon. Joe, did you get your thing?
Yeah, the civil rights thing I think was great. I see the Bill of Rights. There's the icon on the website here, which I love. Like I actually carry a pocket constitution with me the last like 2 campaigns I've had. And when someone asks me like, what are your policies or whatever, I take out the pocket constitution. I say, this is what I believe in here. And it's the Bill of Rights. It's simple stuff like the first 10 amendments. It's the right to free speech, not without government punishment. It's the right to protect yourself without government, infringement there. It's due process. It's jury of your peers. It's individual rights. If there's nothing in law, then you inherently have that right.
Right. So, and I'll give you an example. So one of these on here, the landlord licensing example, right? Because that's an innocuous sounding policy that a lot of people on the left are really in favor of right now, is the idea that the state should be able to get access to all of these different units that are on the market and inspect them for quote safety. Well, the city of Auburn has a landlord licensing law. It's under section 5.22.50. And the city requires that landlords inspect properties for criminal activity on behalf of the city. And at the discretion of the city, the landlords may be required to hire private security on behalf of the city to make sure that crimes aren't being committed within their buildings. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, isn't that just an excuse not to follow due process and then not get a warrant? Right.
It is. And it's costing money, which raises rents, which makes housing less affordable.
Right.
But I just want to make one point, and I'm going to pass the mic. The Constitution is a shield, not a sword. And for some reason, too many Americans think the Constitution is rules against the people when it's rules for the government. It is a strict set of rules of what the government can do. But we've made government so omnipotent that we put them above the Constitution at this point. And I think a lot of it started with 9/11, because 9/11 would have never happened in Israel or most European countries. Their safeguards against that type of event is very profound, because they've been subject to hijacking before, where they had safeguards in place where you couldn't just push in a cockpit door. That was an American exceptionalism thing. So with that being said, in my little mini truck rant, Albans, you've been taking the studious notes this whole time, and I want to make sure we get to
you're saving the gotcha question for the end. She's going to wait for the last question.
Yeah, I'm setting on. These are chess moves. I'm thinking about 2-3 moves ahead. 5D duopoly chess over here. But you've been writing a lot. So are you either making judgments against us because you're like the coolest person on here right now? You just nah, Joe. I'm sorry, but like when I told people Auburn was gonna co-host this week, they're like, "Oh, I love her. I love her." And when I was at the convention, I was like, "Yeah, we've had Auburn," and everybody immediately stopped the conversation, starts talking about her. So, not to take the shine away from Cobi, because this is his show, but what did you have to say?
I'll just get to another question for Cobi, which is honestly, I was gonna ask, one, I loved your definition of politics. That was like just an excellent definition of politics. But what I wanted to, I always just like make notes in case there's something that later I want to remember to bring up, but then a lot of times it gets like conversely, it gets brought up in the conversation. So then I just disregard my notes. I was gonna ask though, like with your civil rights in terms of like policy or activism in a position on the city council, like what is that going to translate to exactly? Like what are some things facing your city that you specifically want to kind of address?
Right. Well, one is repealing the landlord licensing law. That's just an excuse to the city. Yeah. And then I think, Joe, you might have it open in front of you. I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have a different one you wanted to talk about? I have a whole list of them here. So if you don't, I'll go to the next one.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. The next one
I didn't do my homework, by the way. Like that's the thing. I didn't do my homework. Like Joe's on your website, and I'm like, I don't know who the hell you are. I'm just making things up.
I literally just found this while we're talking.
No problem.
Sorry, go on, Cobi.
Another big one. Given this is the Black Powder podcast, I'll talk about gun rights a little bit. The state of Washington has passed an assault weapons ban, which is its own problem. Hopefully, that gets overturned by the Supreme Court. But the other one is they recently passed a permit to purchase law. And the permit to purchase law has all these different hoops you have to jump through in order to get a permit to go out and exercise what's supposed to be an inalienable right. And what's fascinating to me is actually one of the criteria to go through that permitting process is to waive all of your medical information so that the state can go through and inspect your psychological history, your healthcare records, all of it. So I'm like, okay, so you need us to waive our Fourth Amendment rights so that we can get permission to execute our Second Amendment rights. What, like, are you out of your mind? Like the number of ways that is unconstitutional is insane. But, again, I'm running for city council. There's not much I can do about that particular law at the city level with one exception. What I've suggested for our city is I said that I think we need to have a community gun range. And one of the remarkable responses I've gotten actually is I've gotten support on that from people on the left and the right. There's people across parties. I like the idea of a gun range. They like it for different reasons. The folks on the left really like it because it puts the police officers in a space where everybody who owns guns in the city is coming to interact with them, right? So it's kind of it's not entirely authoritarian because you're not forcing people into that room, but you're welcoming an environment where the police are going to have an opportunity to interact with folks who have guns. So the left likes it for that reason. The right likes it because it's the precise sort of facility that we can use as a city to ensure that people get the permits that they need to be able to then go purchase a firearm. So the state hasn't figured out how all this training is going to be performed, right? They just gave a list of criteria and said, you guys all figure it out. So at the city level, I think we can help get people the permits that they need to keep their guns. If we have a local gun range where police officers train people to get those permits, and then we can also probably generate some revenue by charging people to come use it from other cities. But so that's one way that I can kind of counter the sort of authoritarian policy that's coming out of the state.
That is one of the worst gun grabs that I can recollect. Other than the fact that California is progressing a bill that would ban the sale of Gen 3 Glocks because that's the newest model we can get here in California. Is Generation 3 Glock pistols, because somebody could put a switch on it to make it into a fully automatic. Why don't they ban cars that can go over, I think the highest speed you can go in California is 70 miles an hour. And somebody could put an exhaust on their car to add an extra 100 horsepower, or they could tune that bitch up to go 120 miles an hour. And then is that not as dangerous as somebody shooting a weapon, somebody driving at 120 miles an hour down a publicly accessible congested highway? I mean, the futility of gun control at this point is nothing more than a political statement that the drones on the far left, or like the far left and the far right, they have to out liberal themselves, they have to out conservative themselves, because they've gerrymandered these districts into factors where they pretty much 1 and 2 on the ranked choice, or is that ranked choice where the top 2 get
No, top 2 is first past the post.
Yeah, but here in California, the top 2 in most areas are Democrats. So how do you beat a fellow Democrat? You have to go further left.
Right.
And and it's like in Texas, I think they do the top 2. How do you out conservative a conservative? You got to go further right. Yeah. So that's
the jungle primary.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, as a city council member, I can't necessarily solve the way the state does elections. I am certainly an advocate of ranked choice. I think that's a great direction for us to go. And we could adopt it on the city level, but a lot of cities have tried that and actually repealed it because they've struggled with implementation. So I think that really does need to be a state effort.
Yeah, Auburn's is having a sidebar here. This is hilarious. I'm not going to put all of it on there, but I had to put this one real quick.
There's a backstory to what that's about.
Okay, but I just because Gavin Newsom is like the greasiest used car salesman that has ever walked this earth. I simply don't respect him for one simple reason: he banged his best friend's wife.
Yeah,
and that to me is the ultimate. I mean, I don't even condone you banging your friend's wife. But your best friend's wife, that is a hugely different level of a traitorous friend that I could ever imagine. And I didn't mean to spoil. I don't think any of your opponents can use that against you, because I think if you don't agree with that, then maybe we shouldn't have everybody having the right to vote. Anyway. Joe, do you got some?
I was just thinking, like when we were talking about those banning the 3rd generation blocks or something, I was thinking about the roads are full with fully automatic automobiles on crowded streets. They got to ban them now. Just kidding.
Everybody should go back to stick shift. That's going to eliminate an easy 50% of the 45 and under crowd. That's how we solve LA traffic, by the way, Evans. We have to mandate that only people who know how to drive a stick shift. That'll give us a good 10.
I drove stick throughout my entire career in LA until I got a Tesla. Like literally, I was a stick shift driver until I bought a Tesla.
I agree. I'm the exact same way. Every car I owned was a stick shift until I bought a Tesla. Yep.
Yeah.
So if we as libertarians can put that in our national platform, that we are going to ban automatic transitions, that is a way to cut greenhouse gases. That is a way to end traffic snarls in every city, at least for 10 to 15 years.
I will not be banning automatic transmissions in the city of Auburn.
That's good to hear. I agree with that.
All right, fine. We're going to give that to you. Who has another question for my guy?
I got an interesting kind of philosophical thing here, and it's not directly what are you going to do, but just like what do you when you take the temperature, the pulse of the people in your city, are they in favor of kind of sanctuary cities or nullification of state or federal laws just for that town?
Thank you for bringing that up, and this is where the rubber meets the road for me, right? This is a interesting policy for me to take a stance on, because it's very divisive in our city. We're a sanctuary state. The city of Auburn is not a sanctuary city. In fact, the city of Auburn has had a number of opportunities to become a sanctuary city, and they've chosen not to. And so I I'll start by saying that I fully support due process, and the way that the existing administration is sending ICE out and arresting people without warrants is completely unacceptable. If I were running for federal office, I would support programs that make immigration easier. In fact, I actually think that having immigrants who are here that are here illegally has been historically a great benefit to our country, because I mean it's the only reason Social Security hasn't failed yet, is because they pay into it and they get none of the benefit. Our welfare programs have been held up by illegal immigration. Now, whether that's ethically okay or not, I mean, again, I would rather not have some of those programs and allow open borders, but you can't have both, right? I think Milton Friedman said you can have open borders or you can have welfare. You can't have both, and that's just math. And so the solution to that at the federal level was to say, okay, well, what if we let people stay here illegally? Well, that's caused a lot of that's caused a whole host of other problems. And there's a big reaction to that theory and that thesis right now. For some reasons, okay, other reasons not so good. As far as the city of Auburn goes, and this is on my website, I think that the best thing that we can do in this situation is to have our local police department be available and at this gun range perhaps, and to teach people, the different sorts of warrants that federal agents have and what authority that gives them. There are some warrants where they can arrest you on reasonable suspicion. Some federal warrants allow you to arrest somebody on reasonable suspicion if they're in public property, right? In other words, if they're on the street or they're in public transportation, a federal agent can come in and ask you questions and arrest you and so on and so forth. I don't agree with that policy. That's just the way that it is. That's an is statement, not a referendum. But those warrants do not allow you to trespass, say, on private property on a Home Depot and arrest people. And it does not allow you to trespass, say, on city-owned property like a school, which the ICE is currently doing. They're going on to elementary schools and arresting people that way. The city absolutely has the authority to tell ICE, go away, come back with a warrant. Home Depot absolutely has the authority to tell ICE, go away, come back with a warrant. And if you're in your own house and a group of armed men show up with masks and try and arrest you without a warrant, I'm sorry. No, don't go with them, right? The warrant is the signal that says due process is going to be followed. You're going to get your right to a jury. You're going to get your right to fight your battle constructively with words. Somebody shows up, kicks your door in, tries to arrest you without a warrant, then due process is gone, right? That constructive discussion is off the table. You need to defend yourself. And I think that circumstance can be avoided if our police department is available to inspect those warrants, to teach people what to look for. And now I think there's two ways to do that. One is the resistance way, in which the police will show up at your doorstep if ICE is there and ask them to leave and arrest them if they don't, which could be a big constitutional crisis. Now, I don't know that that's the right way or not. The other way is for our police department to cooperate with ICE and detain people on behalf of the federal government, which would be a violation of our state sanctuary status, but would be consistent with federal law, and utilize our own court system, which the city of Auburn just passed. We're going to have our own judges and our own police system to ensure that those warrants are actually produced and provided. Now, I don't like that because I don't like deporting people who have been constructive members of society for the last 20 years. But I also don't like the idea of standing up to the federal government if that's not what my community wants. And so I think, given the climate that we're in, we need to have a serious come to Jesus conversation with the community about what are we going to do in response to this, especially in light of what's happening in California. And I think the foundation of that conversation needs to be about due process. Whether we cooperate or whether we declare ourselves a sanctuary city, the foundation of the conversation is due process. Now, if I was running for federal office, I could have a different argument to make about the value of immigrants, but city level, I can't make that argument. So due process is what I got.
So what scares me about what we're seeing with the ICE agents is the first part, there's no accountability.
Absolutely, right.
But the second part is, and I go back to COVID. So my kids were in high school in March of 2020 when they were told to go home and we're going to give you a computer and you're going to go to school at home on a computer for the next year and a half. Trump was ceremonially escorted out of the White House in November of 2020 when he was voted out. And then we got Biden. Biden took those COVID lockdown measures and injected them with steroids and human growth. He basically injected the COVID restrictions with whatever created Godzilla.
Yeah.
And it went out of control. Now we are faced with a dilemma right now because most Americans don't agree with the tactics that are being utilized to fulfill Trump's campaign promise about deporting illegal immigrants.
Right.
When Democrats come to power, what are they going to do?
Absolutely.
Once they found this newfound power where the government can just go out in the streets and suspect somebody of being in violation of something, and there's no recourse.
And then all of a sudden you end up in Alligator Alcatraz or some El Salvadorian prison, and you don't have the ability to argue your case, right? I mean, what message does that send? Absolutely. So that's unacceptable, regardless of where you are in the immigration.
Or it should be to me, it should be unacceptable to anybody who values the Constitution.
Right. Yeah.
Because this is a complete infringement. If you're on American soil, you get due process. That's what separates this country from every second and third world nation on this earth.
Well, that's the fundamental. Again, that's the fundamental incentive to have peaceful discourse, is that due process will be respected. As soon as you take that away, it's a jungle, right? You've returned to nature. And so, so absolutely, I completely agree with you.
Almonds?
Here's one of my notes. Sorry, I just decided to make you a note. So I was wondering, actually, so Cobi, when it comes to something that I have observed is like when talking to my friends on the left, you know, we share a concern about like there's like affordable housing and like and shortages for things like that. But then where we deviate is like our policy preferences for how to deal with those things. And I'm often like, you know, they go, oh, well, we have to do this. I'm like, no, that's going to make it more expensive. We have to do it this completely other way. And I have those conversations on Facebook. I have those conversations in personal conversations all the time. How do you reach people? Like in your campaign, how do you reach people to talk about these sorts of issues, like to kind of bridge the gap, like meet them where they are and kind of go, no, these are the policies that will help make these things that we mutually value, such as, you know, affordable and accessible housing, things like that. Like, how do you kind of bridge that gap?
Right. That's a great question. Using the affordable housing analogy, you know, I'm blessed with a state, for all its faults, that provides its citizens with a high level of transparency and a lot of data, right? I can go to the website at any time and look at what we're spending on any given issue, and I can trust that it's accurate. And what's fascinating is a lot of people come back to reality when you hit them with cold, hard, you know, facts. It's like, look, okay, this is a democratic institution, the state government right now, and they are telling us in Lieutenant Governor Heck's Housing Action Plan is where I get this data. The Lieutenant Governor, who's a Democrat, who supports the idea of public housing, who has spent the last, who is amongst a party that spent the last 15 years focusing on public housing, telling you how much it's costing, right? And that public housing costs literally twice as much as the same, like an apartment, an affordable apartment, 800 square foot, one bedroom, produced by the state costs twice as much as what it costs the private sector to do it for the exact same thing. The exact same thing. And they have, of course, decided to commission a study to figure out why. So we're going to spend more money it's like, well, you know, wait a second. Why are we spending more money to figure out why we're spending more money? Let's just stop spending more money and let the market do what it's good at. And that's produce quality products at an affordable price. And there is the folks that I talk with on the left, when they see that it literally costs twice as much. Like it's $250,000 approximately for a private sector apartment, like condo, 700 square foot condo, and it's almost $500,000 for the same thing produced by the government. Man. And when you tell them that, they're like, okay, well, you know, maybe Cobi's not a wackadoodle right winger. Maybe he knows what he's talking about, and you know, it's their taxes. But as soon as they connect that it's their taxes and not Elon Musk's taxes, and that they're spending twice as much for something that ought to be produced for half the price, then they tend to come around a little bit.
Nice.
Right. So we're gonna start moving this to the wrap up session because I know Cobi has some.
I got about 10 more minutes.
Yeah. So Joe, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes for your segment with 1 minute for you, 1 minute for Cobi on the answer, and then we're gonna go to Auburn's, and then we're gonna wrap this up. So Joe, what's your 1 minute question?
Yeah, so I just I like what I've heard. I've heard like everything you said has been great, really, and I wish that I lived in Auburn, Washington, so I could vote for you in November. I hope other people do, and congratulations again on winning, on advancing in the primary this Tuesday. Best of luck to you, and I'll do my best, whatever I could do to try to help get the word out over there. If there's anything you want of us to do or me, let us know.
Yeah, please share. Did you have a response to that, or you want to?
Yeah. I guess the biggest thing is first of all, I very much appreciate the outpouring of support. I'm very excited that the Libertarian Party has decided to make a really concerted effort at local elections. And even if you can't vote for me, one thing that you can do that would absolutely help my campaign and help me get elected is donate to the campaign. If you go to my website, CobiClark.com, there's a little donate button at the top right. It doesn't have to be a lot, but every dollar is a postcard that I can send to the Auburn residents to share the vision that I've shared with you today. Because getting that vision out, I think, is the difference between getting elected and not getting elected.
Word, Auburn's. Donate.
It doesn't help that it's backwards, but
it worked over here. It's donate. I was
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. See, notes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I guess I would echo the same things that Joe said. Is I think this is a great campaign. I like what you're focused on. I think I really appreciate it when people really look into the local issues and then how to kind of solve the problems in their community. I'm a big believer in trying to solve problems. So I would take this moment to just say, if there's something you haven't talked about that you're passionate about and that you want to talk about, this is your opportunity right now to do so for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Taxation is theft.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Or if you want a question, I'll give you a question, but it'll have nothing to do with your campaign.
Sure. Hit me with one more question. Here's the gotcha question she's been taking notes on all podcast. Here we go.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
I'm gonna be careful. I'm gonna say pterodactyl. Pterodactyl is my favorite.
Mine too.
Okay.
Interesting choice. Choice.
It's the eagle of the dinosaurs,
Right?
Of them. Yeah.
I'm a bird girl, and my companion of 25 years was named Petrie after the pterodactyl in Land Before Time. So
yeah.
I that was a good answer. You've got I can't vote for you, but you've got my support.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And feel free now to talk about anything you want to talk about that you haven't mentioned that you think would be important for people to know.
No, I just want to again say thanks so much. I've been involved with the Libertarian Party for a long time. I voted for Gary Johnson twice, voted for Joe Jorgensen, voted for Chase Oliver. Yeah, fabulous. Now, again, on a local level, I think that the Republicans do absolutely have something to offer. I don't want to be too disparaging of them, but my heart is with libertarians. So thank you so much for taking the time and giving me your support and helping give me the moral foundation for what good governance and good policy looks like.
That's awesome. I want to thank you too, because Chase brought Auburn's and I together. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to her house twice to hang out with the guy, and that was one of the few things we had in Southern California. So thank you very much. Anybody else got anything else before we start to wrap this up? Why are you still taking notes, bro? What's going on?
I'm here for a controversial opinion.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Thank you.
I thought we were going to end on a positive note. We end on an insult. Oh, my God. At any rate, I want to thank everybody who listened, watched. I want everybody, we were posting the link right there, www.CobiClark.com. Please, 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 $5, $10, $15, $20. If you're not at that point in your life, then, you can blame a Democrat or a Republican. I'll say that, my bad. You got the Republicans on your team, but if you can't help out with $5, $10, $20, you really need to start thinking about voting for libertarians. And that's just the way it is. And with that being said, as we end this segment of the Black Powder podcast. I know you guys. Please help.
Make that donation.
Okay. As we always say, and I hope Joe and Abens know that, but we always end this with live free
or die.
Or die.